All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Lee Velez. I'm here with Goose.
What up?
Heck.
You.
And Gabe. Comfort zone. In this episode, the crew talks about their comfort level gauge and the results derived from it. We cover topics that range from contentment, happiness, goal attainment, complacency, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Dan Stevens and Neale Donald Walsch. Guys, if you're new, thank you for listening. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off with a definition from dictionary.com. We define the word comfort. It is defined as relief in affliction, consolation, solace, a feeling of relief or consolation, a state of ease and satisfaction of bodily wants with freedom from pain and anxiety. All right, cool. So I pulled up the definition through Wikipedia just because I found it as interesting, how they defined comfort zone. So Wikipedia defines comfort zone as a psychological state in which things feel familiar to a person and they are at ease and in control of their environment, experiencing low levels of anxiety and stress. In this zone, a steady level of performance is possible. I love that definition way better than
like
comfort.
Dictionary.
Just comfort. So comfort zone is obviously what we're talking about. So I feel like they nailed it. A behavior state where a person operates in an anxiety neutral position. Brown describes it as where our uncertainty, scarcity, and vulnerability are minimized, where we believe we'll have access to enough love, food, talent, time, admiration, where we feel we have some control. All right, so that's how they defined comfort zone. So what I found particularly interesting in this, to the right of that definition of comfort zone on wikipedia.com, they have an image of 3 circles. The center circle states it's yellow and it states comfort zone. The circle out, a bigger circle outside of that engulfs the smaller circles in green, titled optimal performance zone. And then the third outer layer / circle is in red, and they have it as danger zone. And this, coincides with what they, explain as performance management. Stepping out of a comfort zone raises anxiety and generates a stress response. The results is an enhanced level of concentration and focus. White, 2009, refers to the optimal performance zone, in which performance can be enhanced by some of stress, and Yerkes reported anxiety improves performance until a certain optimum level of arousal has been reached. Beyond that point, performance deteriorates as higher levels of anxiety are attained. Beyond the optimum performance zone lies the danger zone, in which performance declines rapidly under the influence of greater anxiety. However, stress in general can have an adverse effect on decision making. Fewer alternatives are tried out and more familiar strategies are used, even if they are not helpful anymore. Optimal performance management requires maximizing time in an optimum performance zone. I know that got like crazy technical, but did that make sense? I thought it was cool how they broke that portion down. Yeah. When I was thinking about comfort zone and your comfort level and whatever our gauge is and stepping out of that, yeah. I did not put together or add in the thought of, quote, danger zone or optimal, what they call is optimal performance zone. All right. So, what is your comfort level gauge like / your comfort zone? For you guys, do you embrace challenges or are you a very cautious person?
I'll say for me, like discomfort is more, socially driven for the most part. Yeah. Because I don't like doing certain things by myself and some other thing. But it's a weird mixture of if you ask me to do something that I probably personally wouldn't do myself, I'd more likely do it because you asked me to do it. Right. Which is a weird, I don't know what you want to call it, dichotomy in terms of my own personal comfort level, but I'll kind of go beyond that for other people, even though I wouldn't necessarily do it for myself. Yeah. It's a weird. It's a weird mixture of that. Yeah.
So is it more of a challenge that you accept it as?
I don't know. I don't know what gives, I guess, quote unquote, gives me that little boost of like motivation. I guess for the fact I'm doing it for somebody else is more of motivation than me doing it for myself, which is a weird opposite way of that most people will probably generally do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, obviously we all have gauges, but it's like, you know, sometimes I feel like some people's like risk level, you know, is broken. Where compared to so like me versus my wife, I take more risks in life. Sure. So I would say my comfort zone or my comfort level gauge is a much more wider. Has a much more wider range than my wife. Which is good because we balance each other out. Like if we both had like smashed in risk levels or whatever, like just had no gauge and just couldn't, you know, hone it in, so to speak. I feel like I bring more out of her, and she kind of like brings me back from like floating away, so to speak. I don't know if I embrace challenges. I guess I do. Yeah, I guess I do. It just I guess the word embrace sounds weird, but yeah, you take on challenges. Sure. I definitely take on challenges or whatever. But when it comes to embracing, am I welcoming them? I guess I am by the decisions I'm making. Yeah. Depending on what that is. Is it necessary to break out of your comfort zone?
I would think, kind of based on that little diagram there, is like at least
with Wikipedia.
Yes, for at least a little bit, like you have to be in the green zone, which is the optimal thing, which is like you're outside of your comfort zone, even a little bit, because obviously if you go too far out, then it becomes a disaster,
right?
For the most part, but
it's all wild,
right?
I mean, sometimes you get so comfortable, you're scared to step out of that comfort zone. When you actually step in the comfort zone, you do find things that are actually comfortable to you. You're just scared to like
give it that first shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I think of is like when I first went to Temple University. So when I was we grew up in Bristol Borough, went to Bristol High. It's like a small town, small school, and I was very comfortable, you know, what I was doing. And all I could think of was like, dude, I'm going to walk into, you know, like this big city, you know, big dreams. This whole thing, I'm going to get eaten alive. And I remember there's like some like level of resistance there that I had. I'm like, I know I had to do it, but I'm like, didn't make it like fun at first. I was like, oh crap. Cause you're doing something that it's like, it's completely, what it is. I think is the unknown. Yeah. So then when there's the unknown, that draws in some level of fear. So then you naturally retract, like you go back
and you start overthinking like the worst stuff possible. Yeah.
And then you start going to whatever's, you know, comfortable to you. I'm like, I don't, you know, I got to a point where I don't need to go, you know, go to college. I can do X, Y, and Z, and I'll be fine. And even if any of that was true, that was BS when it came to me, though.
Sure.
Right?
That wasn't you.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I knew that wasn't my path. I knew I needed to go to school for me, not because crap. I didn't technically have to go to school, and I would be fine. But it was more like, for me, that was what my path was going to be regardless. And I knew that I was just saying stuff just to like, out of, you know, fear, I think.
Sure. You were comforting yourself at that point.
Yeah.
Just saying it.
For sure.
I mean, that was like when I first started working where I'm at now. Obviously I'm desktop support. So it was super uncomfortable. Just, all right. So somebody puts in a ticket, says their mouse is not working. So it's like, it's weird and awkward to say, like, just to walk up to somebody, they're not expecting like a specific time. You just get the ticket, you work on it, and you go off to their desk, and it's like uncomfortable to be just like standing there and like. At first, I was going like this, knocking on their desk. I'm like, "Hey, desktop," like all like bashful and stuff. And now I'm in my comfort zone. I'm like, "Hey, I'm here. What's you know what's going on? What can I do for you? Or you know what happened?"
IT's here.
Yeah, I mean that in the beginning I was like shy and bashful about it, and it was extremely uncomfortable because
I didn't know personal space.
Yeah, I didn't know how they would react if someone was like behind them. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to scare them, and I just started thinking in my head. I'm like, dude, what the?
I did that that's a lesser degree. I worked in a computer lab at school in high school, and it was the same thing. Like they call my computer doesn't work, whatever. But it's like then at the same time you go there to fix it, and then like they're sitting there staring at it, like if you do something wrong,
and they make it more awkward. It's just like, all right, you're working on their machine. They're just like staring at you, like.
And you're like, oh, I hope I'm. Like, you're thinking back, I'm hoping I'm fixing this correctly.
Yeah, make sure you're not ruining something else. Meanwhile, they're the ones that broke it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I feel like all of us, to some degree. I mean, with every job, you're being watched.
Yeah.
On some level, and you have to quote perform. I mean, Goose. I mean, you're one of them who's literally you have people waiting, watching, nitpicking. Obviously, being a barber,
and expect you to make them look good.
Yeah.
It's definitely something. No, just working in a barbershop kind of opened me up. So it was definitely put me into a comfort, like in a zone that I didn't feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
So it's like, now you
have no choice but to interact with people.
Yeah, it's like being thrown on stage. You're like, all right, now do your thing.
Perform.
Yeah.
So I would just cut hair, but I'm like, dude, I'm really like performing in a sense. Everyone's watching me.
Yeah.
They're seeing how good I am. Because
Sure.
if I mess this haircut that's in the chair, the next person's not going to jump in my chair.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, so I'm obviously my first, I would say 6 months was pretty hard. And then you get to know the people that kind of regularly come. But yeah, that was like, that was definitely like.
And then getting to know the people makes it a little more comfortable too, because
Yes.
you can converse with them
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But even though if you know who they are, like I can be cutting you in the chair, some stranger sitting there staring at me. Like that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, just going back to it's a performance thing. Am I living up to this person's expectations?
Sure.
How funny that sounds, but that's really what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you didn't care, that wouldn't even cross your mind, which I don't believe anyone who says that doesn't cross their mind.
Sure.
Just because I feel like that's such like a natural
everyone
reaction
watches
to
what
that.
people. Everyone has some sort of fear of what other people are thinking and doing, or like saying about them.
Right. So can we truly be happy in life without getting uncomfortable?
I believe there's people out there that are happy and they're just happy comfortably doing what they normally do, like without getting out of that spot.
Like living their life day by day without getting out of that zone.
Doing their
But is that comfort or just like contentment?
I think that's just
Right.
I think they're just settling and content and just.
It might. I mean, it might be same.
Or a combination of.
Yeah, a combination of. That question just reminds me of like the typical. I'm not saying people who win the lottery do this, but people think winning the lottery would be like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, I have, regardless of what the amount is, in their mind, I have enough money to not quote work anymore, and every day will basically just be Groundhog Day, like this routine
Oh yeah.
that you just do day in and day out. I feel like anyone who thinks, not everyone, but I'm saying the majority of people who think about winning the lottery, that they would get into just this bland routine. Like, I don't have to worry about anything. I'm worry free, right?
You don't have to work for anything anymore.
Yeah, 11 o'clock, The Price is Right comes on. I can just go and wake up and eat when I want, what I want. You know, that thing. What's funny is there's so many things to life outside of that. The problem with that thought process is that, quote, comfort level, in which I don't think anyone could stay there. I feel like you could stay there for a certain time because life doesn't operate that way. So I do believe you can be comfortable for like 6 months to a year, but things happen in between. Yeah, like someone passes away, right? Something happens dramatic to the economy, right? Stuff that's out of our control happens. That's just life. Regardless of how much you think you would have control of, life is still happens and you're going to be uncomfortable. So I feel like regardless, it's not, that would never happen. But I do feel like, and I feel like we've all experienced this, there is periods, like you could think back in periods I was definitely like on cruise control kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like just going through the
Absolutely.
motions, not doing anything crazy, not doing anything additional, just trying to just get by for whatever your reason was at that point.
Yeah.
And I think it could have been because you just got beat the heck up from the the segment before that, right? You don't know. It was kind of like I've had like this really crazy just busyness for the last like this whole entire year, but specifically like this past week it's just been crazy nuts. And I woke up like today just thinking like, dude, I don't even know, like I can physically get up, but like mentally I don't want to get up.
Drained.
It has nothing to do with life. It just has to do with like, dude, I am so like I felt I had a sore throat, my head was pounding. I'm like, dude, what is going on? And I went to like bed at a decent time. It wasn't even like I stayed up late or anything. It was just like this strain and everything kind of caught up to me. But then once I got up, I was like, boom, I went back to my thing, went back into my normal grind, and today was a productive day again. Regardless, it was supposed to be like a rest day, but still, things have to get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And even going through that, a day off where I wasn't, quote, technically working, I still had to get out of my comfort zone and just getting up and doing something.
Yeah.
I was comfortable, right? And then I'm like, I didn't want to really cut the grass today. Like, I didn't want to like drive down into the next town over to pick up all this stuff that I left at, the barber shop. Like, I didn't technically want. Do I wish I could snap my fingers and it appear in my garage? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And my grass is cut? Sure. But I have to do it. Like, you just have to do things. Like, things have to get done or no one's going to do it. And it's that pain that I am avoiding of it not being done, and rather it's like, well, it's going to be up to me anyway, so I might as well just do it now.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Progress breeds happiness. Do you agree? And with progress, is there discomfort?
Because, I mean, most likely if you're progressing with something, you're doing something even at least slightly different than what you normally do.
Right.
So you have to, whether
it's like one in
the extent of it is, I guess, varies depending on what you're doing, but sure, there's some discomfort in almost anything you're doing, because not everything like we always say, nothing goes exactly how you planned it to do. So so you have to deal with like the little odds and ends of that anyway.
Yeah, it's like me with the barbershop. I was working for someone, and then I was going to open up my own shop, which would be progress in my career, but it was like I was uncomfortable. It was like nerve-wracking. I didn't know. I never owned a business before. I knew I had ideas and stuff, but then when I actually did it, it was like I was actually like happy that I did it. Discomfort can bring happiness.
Or at least it elevates it than what you currently have now. So like it brings an extra added level of it. You realize, oh, I can do something that I didn't realize I could do before.
Yeah, the final result of it. Yeah.
I always think of like someone who's like in rehab, or like just like in some like crazy freak accident or something, and they go from like not I wouldn't say to the extreme of like being paralyzed or anything, but they can't walk.
Sure.
And they have to like go through rehab, like physical therapy to go back, go through those motions
kind
again.
of the being normal. Yeah.
Right. And like that physical vision of someone progressing through discomfort.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm sure they're like elated as hell when they sit back in that bed and to rest for the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there has to be some like, and I think that that's with all of us to some extent. Maybe not even that physical thing, but progression just tells you when you're progressing, you're doing something towards something that you want.
Yeah.
So that in itself is going to draw in happiness. I mean, there's going to be the pain. We go back to the classic example of working out at the gym where you're working out and you have this pain even while you're doing the workout, but in the back of your mind it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next day, even though you're in pain, you're like, I know there's growth. I know there's something happening. I did something right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for whatever reason, the physicality part is much easier to accept and go through than the emotional.
Sure.
I feel like, so if I'm going through a specific pain, I'm not sitting there like saying, oh, good. I'm happy I'm going through that emotional pain right now. 'Cause even though I know it's just going to make me stronger, it's just not as easier. It's not as easy as when we do the physical.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because obviously physical is more quantifiable. Oh, I'm going to build more muscle as opposed to I'm going to heal, emotional scars or whatever you call it.
Right. But I mean, in the same way, it's the same thing. Like you're building your muscles, your emotional muscles.
But that's a lot harder to visualize.
Right. So when is comfort good?
I think it kind of goes back to the example you were kind of giving, like getting like you're doing something different, but you're going back to like what you know as normal, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of, or just kind of ease back so you can kind of take a look back and reflect on the progress you've been making.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know this is like one of the things I read. It might come up later, but it was one of those things like retracting back to what your comfort zone is for purposes of that growth. And even though that sounds like complete opposite of what we're saying, but it's kind of like this whole Wikipedia definition of optimal performance zone versus danger zone. Like if you go too far out from your comfort zone, now you're walking into the unknown, but you can walk as far as you're beyond unknown and you could obliterate everything, like just ruin everything.
Yeah.
Whereas if you step back into your comfort zone, at least you can go back and assess, okay, now I stretched my comfort zone. Now my circle of my comfort zone is a little bit wider now because I'm familiar with that.
As opposed to going too far beyond, like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, you go to a point of no return is what they say. It's like, I'm not going back now. I mean, like, it's too late.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's like crossing a bridge and burning it behind you. Like, you're not going back now, so you have to keep. So now the rest of your journey is uncomfortable because there's nothing that you know.
There's nothing to fall back on.
Right. Yeah. So do you guys think, can you attain your goals by being comfortable?
to probably some degree, but probably it would take a lot longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me of like our investment money / or like retirement money.
Sure.
Like if you have money going into a 401k off like your basic job or something like that, and they're just taking out a percentage out of your check every day. That's a very comfortable thing because you're comfortable still with what you're getting in your paycheck, and you could still go through life. But you could also still attain a goal, a financial goal at the end of whatever the 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, whatever you set out to do with your financial advisor. So I feel like there can be a comfort thing. It's kind of like what you say, but can you reach that goal faster by getting uncomfortable through different kinds of aggressive investments? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm completely uncomfortable. I'm completely on fire. My bank account's on fire. I'm on fire. Everything's ablazing, right? But it's crazy chaotic. That this is nuts. There's nothing comfortable about it because it's all new. It's all
Right.
and it's happening so fast.
Right.
And the thrill, I don't know if you would call it thrill, or the emotional roller coaster that you go through, whether this can either be really good or the investment can go really bad.
Sure.
Right? Or do nothing and not perform. And you're just like, that's almost just as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, sitting stagnant is just...
Yeah. Well, yeah, because now, you're everything's through the roof. It's such like it is. It's like a roller coaster ride. Whereas if you knew you're throwing a certain percentage, whatever it was, 10% out of every, pay to your, retirement investments, then you know what's going out. You could still, hopefully at one point, you could still pay the bills at home and all this other stuff and get through.
Yeah, you can't put 100% on there.
Right, but if you go all in on an aggressive investment, I'm like, dude, this idea could flop or be the best thing ever, right?
Yeah, it's a chance you got to take.
It's like
That
borderline like
uncomfortable,
that gamble. And I think that's why people gamble. Like, it's that cheap thrill that you
risk
can
reward
get.
That you can win big, but you can lose everything too at the same
Right.
time.
It's that instant, I won it yesterday.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Kind of switching things up here with dad life stuff. How do you help your kids break out of their comfort zones and provide example if possible?
I know Nova, at one point Nova was shy, I guess when she was younger, because she's not shy now. But when I used to make fun of her. I used to call her the preschool dropout because she went to preschool for one day and she didn't like it. And I was like, so we started explaining it to her, like, and it was, I guess, being around so many kids all at one shot that made it uncomfortable for her.
It was like,
so
overdrive.
now, right, and then within that same week, Jess, my wife, took her to dance, and she went to dance, but it was only comfortable because Bella was able to stay for that first date in the classroom. So then the second time around, they took her, and she didn't want to stay because she wasn't comfortable with everything. Now, 2 years later, she's right now with her little cousin, Layla, which is Manny's daughter, doing gymnastics, and they just go out there and they're having a ball at it. So she's definitely like gotten out of her comfort zone. Like we explained it to her and stuff, and I think she feels a little more comfortable now with Layla being there with her. So she's got like someone to team up with her. But like at home, she's not uncomfortable. She's always rowdy. I mean, at daycare, she broke out of that, so she's kind of in a comfort zone like when she's at daycare now.
Yeah, I think of like James. I remember like just walking him into walking up to his like first soccer practice, and we're all standing around, and it's a bunch of people he doesn't know. It's a sport that we had him signed up when he was like 18 months. So you're talking like 2.5 years ago, and at 18 months, you're not going to remember. Most people wouldn't anyway, but so I remember the coach called everyone, like all the new players, into the middle of the field. Bring your ball, kind of like an intro thing, and James is looking back at me. He's like, I ain't going there like without you. Like he was grabbing my hand.
Oh yeah.
Like, no, like this is your practice or whatever. I'm like, just go, just give it a whirl, kind of thing. And he was like hesitant at first. He looked at me, looked at the ball, and just like kicked the ball into the circle and just like slowly walked in. Till now, where there's like, all right, everyone line up. James running to the line, like saying hi to everybody. It's one of those things. It's the unfamiliar that I just don't know how you can ever get comfortable with that things. I think there's a level of like you embrace so much change that you're like, all right, it is what it is. Kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. And I feel like a lot of that happens like when you go to like social events, like when you go to networking events and you're just meeting new people. It is weird, but there does come to a point where you just gotta wing it. Like overthinking it is also not helping either, and that's drawing fake scenarios in your head because it's not a reality. You just made that up in your head. Oh, what if no one likes me? What if no one talks to me? What if I have nothing to talk about?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's all stuff you made up in your head. Right. And I think that's all that is. And then James retracted in a sense where he came back and like talked about it like to us, saying that it was different, you know, had made a couple comments about a couple of the kids or whatever, but he's just like, you could see how his little brain's like analyzing and working through this whole new discomfort. And for me, it was watching him get comfortable with it through his explanations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So he's making it okay almost. He's like, well, he's kind of cool. Like, he had the same spikes as me, and then whatever. She's the same height as me. Like, just little kid things that
talked himself into it.
Yeah, he talked himself. Like, I was just listening. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good.
Observing that he's not the outsider. He has something in common with each one of them.
He's kind of justifying it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then obviously like that was honestly that was literally the first practice, and not even the whole practice. That was like the first half of the first practice. And then after that, he was just, you know, running around like a madman and whatever the coach was saying.
Normal stuff that he does.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because there's a lot of things that happens, you know, with your kids, with our kids, us being kids, whatever it is, with change. And you're going to have to, regardless, get out of your comfort zone. When someone goes to a different school, when you go to elementary school to middle school or high school, whatever the case may be. I mean, heck, you know, you're explaining a story where, you know, Bella taking a test for scholarships. Clearly she was not comfortable in this whole situation. I mean, in a good way, not comfortable.
Yeah, she was just anxious and uncomfortable because she didn't know what to expect.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what, same thing with Ava. She just went from elementary school to middle school. She's going into 6th grade. So a couple weeks ago, they just had 6th grade orientation. So she's getting ready to jump on the bus. She's like, Dad, but I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to open up a locker. I'm like, this is what everyone that's going to be here today, they're all 6th graders, and they're all lost. They don't know where to go. Yeah, they don't know what to do. They're asking the same questions. I'm like, you'll just follow a couple of your friends. You'll get, once you get there, you'll see how it is, and you'll just get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the sense like that, you just got to motivate them and be like, just ensure them and it's going to be okay, and you are going to like it.
Right.
Everybody's in the same situation.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Yeah.
It's funny how easy it is for us to do that versus us going.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If we change jobs or something,
yeah,
but
oh my God. We've experienced that though. You know what I mean? So it's like
but that is funny.
Yeah.
Like the reverse side of that.
Like, oh, nobody's gonna like me in my new job.
Yeah. Is this? I always say in my head, like, is this a good fit?
Sure.
Like, am I a good fit for them, and are they a good fit for me?
Yeah.
I think that's where most of my stuff, because I feel like I can get along with most people and I can figure it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what freaks me out is like, did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
Did they make the right decision? Am I gonna live up to their expectations?
Right.
Are they gonna live up to what the heck I made up in my head about them?
Yeah.
Because especially with that whole process. From the time you go, from interview to like actual start date, if you got hired, there's so much things that passed.
Yeah.
So much time. So you build up all these,
what ifs.
Yeah, what ifs in your mind.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you quote embrace getting out of your comfort zone, but it's just kind of like, oh no, did I make the right choice? Should I be doing this right now? And I think that's all natural to who we are as a species.
Sure.
For a protection kind of, trigger, in us naturally. But it's funny seeing it pan out on like everyday scenarios.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So does complacency occur when we are too comfortable?
That kind of reminds me of always like, when people say like, oh, he's stuck in his ways type thing.
Yeah.
Was like, yeah, you don't want to try anything different because I know what I like, and I'm not gonna try anything different.
Right.
That's what I think that kind of correlates, at least in my head.
Yeah.
That type of situation.
There's like a when you say something, when you give that example, there's like a high level of arrogance there too.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to think, my opinion on any given subject is the utmost, most correct one
Sure.
at all times, forever.
Exactly.
That's a level of
world's
confidence people say stuff. I'm like,
Sure.
okay, no, I mean, yeah, of course, there's a right and a wrong, right? But there's a lot of gray areas too. I mean, like, you just said that, like, you're so confident, like, that would never change ever again.
Like, the world's not changing around you.
Like, I don't understand how you can be with that level of, like, that's not even confidence, that's arrogance.
But then it gets question was like, all right, let me hear what you got to say then, because now you want to hear it to see what the
how
heck,
you justify
how you
situation.
justify this situation now.
Because my mom told me. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like
my
the
first
people,
teacher told me to.
the people who say things like that have, like, the least evidence as to why their opinion is that factual. Like, they're saying it like they're gonna write a history book about it the next day.
I think also the people that talk so much about it, I think their confidence level is that low that they have to talk about it so much. Like,
well, there's definitely studies that show, like, people who are loud, like louder or even more vocal,
obnoxious about
like that they're like they probably know the least in the room. Because they're trying to make up for it. They're overcompensating for their lack of knowledge or whatever it is through just talking, and people, they think that that's filling the void in their own mind. Meanwhile, in the people who are, quote, observant and understanding of what's going on, it's doing the exact opposite. Right. So if I'm in a group, I'm like in a group of people, and I ask a specific question, and I know a lot about what I'm asking, okay, like the topic, and someone's just is rambling, just going in circles about nothing. In their mind, they're saying they provided me with an answer, back off kind of thing.
Yeah, they kind of bullcrapped you, and then like, all right, I got him.
But then, like, for me personally, like, just to have fun, I reverse it back on them. Like, and then the person who I know knows this stuff isn't saying anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not always the case, but it's interesting to see that stuff. It's like, oh, God, when am I that person? You know what I'm saying? Like, when do I look like that, like much of a knucklehead? I cringe to think about that. I'm like, oh, my God, because I know I've done it in the past. You know what I mean? Or if I'm doing it, and people are realizing, like, this dude doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Move over.
That's funny.
It is funny.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. That's one of those things where it's like, oh, God. What's interesting is we're talking about comfort zone, and they're talking about something that they're not comfortable in, right?
Yeah.
But they're just yapping.
Yeah. Just saying anything just to.
Or you ever hear someone say a story about something that happened, and you were there, and what they're saying is like not true? Like, dude, that's not even what happened. Like, they're elaborating.
They're telling a story, and they're like, right.
Yeah,
Right, Jim?
I agree. That's right. That's what happened.
And whatever that means, as to, I guess, acceptance or whatever they're seeking when they do things like that.
For support.
Trying to make it more comfortable that what they're saying is correct.
because they know they're bullcrapping, so they need your support to back them
or
up.
their story stinks, and they're, like we call it, like throwing seasoning on it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So does comfort kill productivity?
I think it can. It can. Depends on, like, your pace.
Yeah.
Say you're comfortable. Say you have an assembly line, and you're putting, I don't know, you're putting a stamp on, and you're putting a stamp on every, like, 2 seconds, right? And then they speed up the belt line. All of a sudden, it's getting faster and faster. You're not comfortable, so it can screw up. Like, you're messing up that whole thing. Next thing you know, you're backed up, and it's piling up and piling up. Like,
you get more mess.
Your product, it's not like good quality. It's all messed up. It's
I guess my metaphor was that, like, that. I think if you're comfortable, become a little lackadaisical in that regard. But I was thinking of, like, think about, you have like a full day of work, 8 hours, or if you have like a half a day, like, you have 4 hours, so you're like, I got to do all this stuff in this amount of time. So you seem like you get a lot more done in those 4 hours than you do in the whole 8 hours.
Yeah.
When you have. I can
Spread
take
it
an
out.
extra, whatever. Just I have 20 minutes until lunchtime, so I can do this and this and blah, blah. But you have a half day, you have to leave here, so you're getting this done. So you try to get everything done as quickly as possible.
That's too funny because that happened to me on Friday. Like, Friday I had a half a day, and I knew I had X, Y, and Z to get done, and I did like X, Y, and Z plus some, and I'm like, dude, I never get this much done on an 8-hour day. I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
2 days work and a half a day.
Yeah, and I'm like, I say busted myself to get on out of here. And it wasn't like, they needed all this extra stuff done. It was like I kind of challenged myself to get extra stuff done so that when I came in today, I didn't have to do what I had to do. Like today was an actually easy morning because I left it off that way on Friday. But
I mean, this happens a lot with jobs / careers that pay for performance.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like you only get paid for, how you perform or your result or something. People are digging it. That's like your classic. I mean, obviously like you're like an entrepreneur, like me starting this lifestyle brand, me, doing, the podcast, all this other stuff. I'm running circles around my own self when it comes to other things that I do.
Yeah.
I'm not clocking in. I don't stare at the clock and see how long I work today. Like, don't look at or think about that. It's just getting the job done.
Yeah.
I know is going to produce a specific result.
Right.
So I go after it. Right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I do think it kills productivity, but even worse, I feel like complacency or comfort kills creativity.
Sure.
I think you're less creative. Because the more, the less creative you are, the less you have to think outside the box, which means the less comfortable,
Sure.
Or uncomfortable you are.
Yeah, because definitely, like, if you're doing something different, you're like, oh, I didn't realize I can do this, and like you kind of expound on stuff that you already weren't thinking about doing, so you kind of like it stretches you beyond what you already the idea of what it was initially.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, there's no like. Okay, so for creativity, you have to be thinking outside the box. So already that's outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because it can't be creative if it was an old thought.
Sure. Exactly.
That defeats the definition.
Yeah.
No.
And sometimes that just thinking outside the box can create more than like multiple different things.
Yeah.
Like
right.
you didn't realize like right now you like you said with the Blessed brand. That's actually like blown up in multiple different things, and it was just one thing, just thinking outside the box.
Right. Yeah, and exactly, like what it can lead to.
Yeah.
Like you're thinking, oh, like this one idea, okay, this is going to go X, Y, and Z. And as we were talking about, quote, the motivation files versus Blessed, like the lifestyle brand was one took over the other and we just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those things. But if I wasn't thinking, quote, creatively, and I was just like, no, just one thing at a time here. Let's just do this. Let's stay. And a very comfort thing because I never did the Blessed lifestyle brand before, right?
Yeah.
But I've done the motivation files before.
Yeah.
Right? In 2015, I released the first, that first album. So on some level, I already knew what I was somewhat doing. I was just improving upon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas something else that I took a picture of and all these people were asking me for shirts of, I'm like, I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know this was going to happen right now. I was going to do this eventually kind of thing, like later this year.
Yeah.
But I was focusing on one project. So, and the way it panned out, I couldn't, you couldn't map it any better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why certain things happen. But if I wasn't thinking creatively and accepting the creativeness, so a lot of times we can put away and like, oh, that's such a good idea, and just like whatever. And then all of a sudden on TV 2-3 years later, you see that invention came out. You're like, someone went after that same thought that I had in my head 3 years ago and are doing something with it. And because they're willing to get out of their comfort zone.
Sure. And actually,
Right.
All right, cool. Is it important to return to your comfort zone? Is the last question.
I think it is because it puts you back to neutral, like grounds you kind of.
Yeah.
Like, so you're not over the top. You're like, damn, let me keep going. You can go back, sit back, look at the overview, and kind of go over things, and then take on the next challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Gabe, you're the one who said it was like it serves as a purpose of some level of reflection.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even to like the comfort zone, like being out of your comfort zone, like obviously brings a level of stress and anxiety with that too. It's like you can't constantly run on that either. You have to come back to a neutral zone where you're not dealing with all that constant stress.
Right.
Because otherwise you're going to burn out.
Right.
And then you're going to wind up going into the danger zone and
Lost cause.
It's not good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So there you have it, folks. We like to end our episodes with quotes, and the first one is by Neale Donald Walsch. And he says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And the second one is by Dan Stevens. The comfort zone is a great enemy to creativity. Moving beyond it necessitates intuition, which in turn configures new perspectives and conquers fears. All right, so there you have it, folks. Comfort zone. In this episode, the crew talks about their comfort level gauge and the results derived from it. We cover topics that range from contentment, happiness, goal attainment, complacency, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Dan Stevens and Neale Donald Walsch. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.